Rivers and floods rivers are amazing. They are long and wide streams of water that flow across the land. They start from high places, such as mountains or lakes, and end at low places, such as seas or oceans. They carry water, soil, plants, animals, and people along their way. They also shape and change the landscape, create new landforms, and expose or bury rocks and fossils. Rivers are a source and a supporter of life. But rivers are also challenging. They sometimes overflow their banks and flood the surrounding areas. This can happen because of heavy rain, melting snow, or dams breaking. Floods can be dangerous and destructive. They can damage homes, farms, roads, and bridges. They can also drown or injure people, animals, and plants. Floods are a risk and a threat to life. However, floods can also be beneficial and helpful. They can bring water and nutrients to dry and barren lands. They can also deposit new soil and create fertile farmland. They can also provide food and resources for people, animals, and plants. Floods are an opportunity and a blessing to life. Different rivers have different patterns and effects of flooding. Some rivers flood regularly and predictably, while others flood rarely and unexpectedly. Some rivers flood gently and slowly, while others flood violently and rapidly. Some rivers flood widely and deeply, while others flood narrowly and shallowly. Different rivers have different challenges and benefits of flooding. Two of the most famous and important rivers in the world are the Nile River in Africa and the Mississippi River in North America. They are both very long and very large rivers. They both flow through many countries and states. They both support many people and cultures. They both have a history and a future of flooding. The Nile River is the longest river in the world. It flows for about 4,160 miles from east-central Africa to the Mediterranean Sea. It passes through 11 countries, including Egypt, Sudan, Ethiopia, and Uganda. It has two main tributaries, the White Nile and the Blue Nile, which join near the capital of Sudan, Khartoum. It has a large delta, where it splits into many branches before reaching the sea. The Nile River is very important for the people who live along its banks. It provides them with water, food, transportation, and trade. It also shapes their history, culture, and religion. The Nile River is the lifeblood of Egypt, the most populous country in the region. Without the Nile, there would be no Egypt. The Nile River is also famous for its annual flooding. Every year, between June and September, the Nile rises and overflows its banks. This is because of the heavy rain that falls on the Ethiopian highlands, where the Blue Nile starts. The rainwater carries a lot of soil and sediment, which makes the water look red. That is why the ancient Egyptians called the flooding time Akhet, which means the red one. The flooding of the Nile was very beneficial for the ancient Egyptians. It brought water and nutrients to the dry and sandy lands. It also deposited a layer of rich and dark soil, which made the land ideal for farming. The ancient Egyptians called this soil Kemet, which means the black one. They also called their country Kemet because it was the gift of the Nile. The ancient Egyptians learned how to predict and manage the flooding of the Nile. They used the stars, especially Sirius, the brightest star in the sky, to know when the flooding would start. They also built dams, canals, and basins to control the flow and distribution of water. They also developed a calendar and a system of measurement based on the flooding cycle. The flooding of the Nile was also central to the ancient Egyptian religion and culture. They believed that the Nile was a god named Hapi, who brought life and fertility to the land. They also believed that the flooding was caused by the terrors of Isis, the goddess of magic and healing, who mourned for her husband Osiris, the god of the underworld, who was killed by his brother Set, the god of chaos and storms. They also performed rituals and ceremonies to thank, honor, or appease the Nile. The Mississippi River is the second longest river in North America. It flows for about 2,350 miles from northern Minnesota to the Gulf of Mexico. It passes through or borders 10 states, including Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois, Missouri, Tennessee, and Louisiana. It has many tributaries such as the Missouri, the Ohio, and the Arkansas, which make it the largest drainage system in North America. It has a small delta, where it forms a bird's foot shape before reaching the sea. The Mississippi River is very important for the people who live along its banks. It provides them with water, food, transportation, and trade. It also shapes their history, culture, and economy. The Mississippi River is the backbone of the United States, the most powerful country in the world. Without the Mississippi, there would be no United States. The Mississippi River is also famous for its irregular and unpredictable flooding. Sometimes the Mississippi rises and overflows its banks. This can happen because of heavy rain, melting snow, or dams breaking. The flooding can occur at any time of the year, but it is more common in the spring and the summer. The flooding can last for days, weeks, or months. The flooding can be mild or severe. The flooding of the Mississippi can be both harmful and helpful for the people who live along its banks. It can damage homes, farms, roads, and bridges. It can also drown or injure people, animals, and plants. It can also cause problems such as soil loss, sedimentation, or pollution. But it can also bring water and nutrients to the dry and barren lands. It can also deposit new soil and create fertile farmland. It can also provide food and resources for people, animals, and plants. The people who live along the Mississippi have tried to prevent and control the flooding of the river. They have built levees, walls, and dams to protect themselves and their lands from the floodwaters. They have also built channels, locks, and spillways to regulate the flow and direction of water. They have also developed a system of monitoring and forecasting the flooding events. The flooding of the Mississippi has also influenced the American religion and culture. Some people see the flooding as a natural disaster, a sign of God's wrath or judgment. They pray for God's mercy and protection. They also help each other and show their resilience and generosity. Other people see the flooding as a natural cycle, a part of life. They adapt to the changing conditions and make the best of the situation. They also celebrate and enjoy the river and its gifts. Rivers and floods are amazing and challenging. They can bring life and death, joy and sorrow, opportunity and threat. They can also teach us many things, such as how to respect and protect nature, how to cope and adapt to change, how to cooperate and collaborate with others, and how to appreciate and enjoy life. Rivers and floods are a source and a supporter of life. Rivers sometimes change their course. Rivers sometimes change their course because of natural or human factors that affect the flow and erosion of water. Some of the natural factors are rainfall, snowmelt, floods, droughts, landslides, and earthquakes. Some of the human factors are dams, levees, canals, and deforestation. These factors can cause rivers to meander, avulse, or delta switch. Meandering is when a river forms curves, bends, and loops as it flows over a flat or gentle slope. Meandering is caused by the difference in water velocity and sediment transport between the inner and outer banks of a river bend. Over time, this causes the river to migrate laterally and create new meanders. Avulsion is when a river suddenly changes its course and creates a new channel. Avulsion is caused by the accumulation of sediment in the riverbed, which raises the water level and makes the river unstable. When a flood or a breach occurs, the river can break through a weak point and find a new, lower, and shorter path.